Welcome to this brief presentation describing our poster looking at global clinical outcomes for clinical trials in dementia with Lewy bodies. Clinician-reported outcomes based on interviews with patients and caregivers and various forms of examination and task performance are important tools for understanding treatment benefit in clinical trials. These may be generic clinical global impression instruments that can be applied to a range of diseases and conditions, or they may incorporate more specific items, anchors, and structured interviews to gain insights into specific signs and symptoms associated with a given disease or condition. In several areas of clinical research, expert groups have sought to develop instruments which are disease-specific, and we see examples such as the Alzheimer's Disease Cooperative Studies Clinical Global Impression of Change, CGIC, and the Clinical Dementia Rating, CDR, which were developed as global clinical outcome measures or disease staging tools and intended to incorporate signs and symptoms of particular relevance to Alzheimer's disease, and which are then used as clinician-rated instruments to assess treatment benefit. Subsequently, these assessments established for Alzheimer's disease have often been incorporated into clinical research and clinical trials in other forms of dementia. One potential challenge with this is that such instruments may fail to capture areas of particular relevance to patients, caregivers, and clinicians for that specific disease state. This concern has given rise to adaptations of instruments so that they may more completely represent a global clinical impression of a given form of dementia. An example of this has been the development of a version of the Clinical Dementia Rating for use in frontotemporal dementia studies, and employed in several large registry trials. This assessment then supplements the standard CDR by incorporating elements of the ADCS-CGIC, which evaluate language and behaviour. Scored in the same manner as the 6 CDR items, a more FTD relevant and comprehensive assessment with 8 items has been devised. Specific then to dementia with Lewy bodies, a 2015 report of the European Joint Programme in Neurodegenerative Disease Research, JPND, identified both the CDR and the ADCS-CGIC as potentially useful global clinical assessments for use in clinical trials. However, the report noted that they were not specific to dementia with Lewy bodies and may be deficient in several respects. This may include both the absence of certain symptom domains, such as movement disorder and neuropsychiatric or behavioural symptoms, but also possible gaps in probing for and in interviewing for certain kinds of symptoms within a domain. For example, the prominence of attentional fluctuations in the cognitive profile of DLB. Therefore, a programme of research to understand the range of signs and symptoms important in a global assessment of the severity of DLB is an important step to adapting or developing a suitable global instrument. The present poster represents one initial component of that research, using a literature review and exploration of reported clinical trial design to understand the range of signs and symptoms which may be associated with and measured in clinical research in DLB patients. 2 data sources were used to explore the use of different clinical outcome assessments in clinical trials in clinical research, clinicaltrials.gov, and a targeted literature review. The most frequently used clinical outcome assessments were the CDR, the Neuropsychiatric Inventory, and the MMSE, strongly supporting the importance of functional, neuropsychiatric, and cognitive domains. Additionally, motor assessment, for example through the use of the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, was also prominent. These results are closely aligned with the JPND report and suggest a comprehensive and relevant global DLB instrument should include a range of motor, cognitive, neuropsychiatric and functional domains, and suggesting too that the CDR and ADCS-CGIC might need to be revised or supplemented when used in DLB clinical trials. Future work then should include the use of primary research in patients, caregivers and clinicians to build a conceptual framework for a global instrument with established clinical relevance and fit for purpose as a measure of treatment benefit for clinical trials in DLB.